pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dana, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, yep.
Here.
President Lamont.
Here.
Trustee Ehrlich.
Here.
Trustee Goldberg.
Here.
Trustee Sawyer.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Adoption of the agenda, do we have a motion to
A motion to approve.
adopt the agenda?
I'll second.
Any comments?
Yeah, motion to add an agenda item
And that's the
for
autism.
the resolution recognizing April 24th as Autism Acceptance Month for the Village of Franklin.
And we would put that under new business B,
Perfect.
okay? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the amended agenda? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes of the March 11th meeting, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second? Nobody wants to second it? Any comments, questions?
That.
David, you said? Okay,
On page 3, in the middle of discussion on that first bullet point, council discussed ongoing issues with the village sidewalk project, including legal challenges and cost overruns. If you could just add cost overruns that resulted from the legal challenges, not necessarily just cost overruns in general.
Thank you.
Welcome, Pam. And one item on page 10, down in the second discussion item on village-wide street sign replacement, I definitely did not express frustration. I think I just identified the cost of replacing signs would be $8,000 to $10,000. I think it's a good deal, in fact. That was it.
So you weren't frustrated, should we just strike that word?
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of it, and I thought the place
Okay.
was really surprisingly good, so I definitely was not frustrated. I think I was just pointing it out.
Okay,
very good.
That was it.
Anybody else have any changes? Nobody else is frustrated? Pam, you okay?
I'm good.
All right. Okay, all in favor of adopting the
Aye.
amended minutes? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public requests and comments? Anybody out there have any comments? Mr. Kopelman?
Jeff Kopelman, 30895 Oakleaf Lane. I came this evening as Vice President of Franklin Historical Society. I'd like to report to the council and to the villagers that Saturday night we had our first event, and it went great. The weather was nice, the food was fabulous. Thank you for attending. We wanted to take your picture dancing next year, you promised. The dancing was great. Everyone had a wonderful time. It was a great event, and it was a great way to kick off and for the village and for everyone to kick off the year's event of the 200th anniversary of Franklin. I would encourage everyone to please attend all the other events and have a great time like we had, and all the villagers to attend as well. And I just wanted to make a short report. I thought we should let the village council know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good coverage in the Eccentric, and that article they wrote gave a list of all the upcoming events, and that list goes on. That's a solid list, must say.
There's a lot of enthusiasm by
That's
a lot
a
of
solid list of items.
community groups, so it was pretty cool.
Yep.
Any other public comments? All right, how about police report? Kurt Lesson's here tonight. Get used to this, buddy.
Good evening. And I'll second that the event Saturday was fantastic. I didn't know what to expect, but it was a first-class event. Food was fantastic, and I appreciate Mr. Lamont walking me around, introducing me to everybody, and I look forward to the rest of the events throughout the year. I don't know if the food's going to be as good as this event. It was fantastic. I think all of you have the monthly report, and you may have seen that we did have a home invasion in Bingham Farms between March 27th and 28th. Unfortunately, this is It looks like it's one of the South American crews that are in Oakland County right now. There's a number of them. And if you've seen any local media, whether it's CNN or WXYZ or WDIV, these crews are all over the country. And we're doing the best we can to work with local law enforcement, the FBI, trying to track these individuals. Many of them have been caught in other states, but we're asking our residents to be vigilant. If they see something that's suspicious, don't be afraid to call. Don't wait 20 minutes. Call right away, call 911, we'll come out. Many of these crews are targeting houses, wealthy houses that back up to wooded areas. We see it time and time again. We had in the last 2 weeks, Bloomfield Township, Bloomfield Hills, Rochester, and Northville, and of course, unfortunately, Bingham Farms. So we can continue to tell our officers to get into the neighborhoods, to extra patrol. So again, if you see something that doesn't quite seem right, give us a call. In anticipation of Officer Kimberly Bonakorski retiring on June 27th, we've extended a conditional offer of employment to Nora Downs. She is someone that has worked in the Tri-Cities up in Kegel, Sylvan for a number of years. I've known her for 3 decades. She's fantastic. She's going to be a great fit for our officers, our department, and our community. So we're looking forward to her starting at the end of May. And then we've been doing a lot of recruiting because we all know that the chief might leave in August, correct? And there'll be a position available as we promote other officers up. So we have found 2 individuals that we are going to interview next week, but we continue to recruit and try to find the right person for Franklin. I'd never want to settle just to fill a position because we want these people to stay here and obviously provide the customer service that all of you expect. I also want you to be aware, and the chief and I want you to be aware, that currently we have no part-time officers within the police department. Rich Jacobs left to go to Madison Police Department a couple of weeks ago, and Pete Kelly has retired as a part-time officer. So we're stretched pretty thin, but we're doing the best we can at this point. And then finally, Sergeant Wells and Sergeant Mulaski are both going to attend the FBI Leads Training, which is a week-long executive course for supervisors. It's absolutely a great course. I've sent numerous sergeants and lieutenants to this course when I was at my other department. They're going to get a lot out of it. It's going to bring a big benefit to the police department. It's a costly training. It's $750 per person, but the chief did apply for a grant through MMRMA, and we did receive that grant, so they'll be paying 75% of that cost. So that's good news. So you'll be getting a check soon if you haven't already. And with that, that's my report, and I'll take any questions if you have it. Have a question?
Just for the heck of it, is that training local or is that out in Virginia?
No, that'll be local. It's kind of geared towards smaller departments that maybe can't send someone to Virginia for 3 months. Obviously, that's a huge commitment. And I'm not saying that I never want to send someone to the FBI Academy, but this is great for these 2 individuals who really are fantastic in their current role.
Yeah, good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Yes,
So on
sir.
that B&E, no one was in the house at the time, correct?
So these crews are not interested in you being home.
Right, no, that's-
Obviously, there's been a couple of incidents where maybe someone's on a gaming machine. I know we had that in West Bloomfield, or there's someone that's asleep in the house. They have no interest in you being there.
No, for sure.
We know that for the most part, they don't carry weapons. They're not interested in taking your weapons, but they're definitely interested in your jewelry.
Yeah.
So that's what we've seen.
For sure. And what time of day do they know?
Their surveillance usually occurs on the house towards dusk, and then they'll break into the house when it's dark.
So in the dark, okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
While you're up here, we want to talk about the intergovernmental agreement between us and Bingham Farms, and let's just handle that now.
Sure.
That's okay?
Okay.
This agreement is a revision of it's not really, there's a couple small changes, but can you speak to it, or do you?
Sure, I think Mr. Frazier wanted to speak to it a bit, but my understanding, I've read over this document a few times, it looks like they're just cleaning up some language. There's nothing, I don't think, earth-shattering here that's different for the village here, and I know that Chief and I are comfortable with the changes, but I'll defer to Mr. Frazier.
I spent some time talking with Ken Martin about what it is that they wanted to accomplish with this. And truly, they've had some changes in the council, and one of the council members, who I believe is an attorney, came back and took a look at this agreement and felt as though they could benefit from these changes.
Okay,
We believe that they're inconsequential in terms of what it is that we need to do with Bingham Farms in a working relationship. And to the extent that they're concerned about them, they're not major, not any of them.
Okay.
We think they're acceptable, and we would encourage you to adopt them.
does council have any questions about this one?
Go ahead, you first.
Yeah, to be honest, I did not read through this portion, because it didn't make it onto the new business. So I would prefer actually holding off on a vote until next month unless it's, I know, well, when do they need an approval of the agreement? They just need the budget, right? Not necessarily an approval of the agreement.
This doesn't impact what we do with the budget.
Right.
And so
Okay.
from that standpoint, delaying until the meeting in May should not be an issue.
Okay, that'd be my preference, that I could provide more substantive feedback or just have more confidence in my vote.
I don't have a problem with it. I had a couple comments, and if that's the case, I'll just provide mine directly to Peter, and he can incorporate them if he thinks they're appropriate, so.
Good, thank you.
I didn't have any trouble with it, that they were minor changes, like you said, but I can give any feedback, my feedback to Peter in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm good with the agreement as it's written. So,
So we'll bring them back next month.
okay, so,
Yeah,
if it's
thank
okay,
you.
we'll,
Thank you very much.
okay, thank you, sir. Chief Averbach, Fire Department,
Good evening.
good evening.
You also have my written report. It'll be the last written report of this, of this nature, because we started using our new software. So the new report, I just sent it out today to the villages. It's much more colorful. There's round shapes and square pegs and, no,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, you sent it out early. Okay, that was supposed to be for next month, but, all right, either way,
We set it out tonight. so-
perfect.
Okay,
Either way. There are some similar headers within that report. So giving you a trend over time, over 18 months, plus a breakdown of individual activities during the month. The only noticeable change that we made was there's on the back page where there's the two circles where we break apart, where did the fire department go and what trucks went. So the trucks that went can show a breakdown of how we're using our apparatus. But where we went, we actually expanded on that to include commercial, residential, and now we've added roadways. So that way you can see what types of incidents, or numbers of incidents, or percentage, I should say, of incidents that we're responding to on the roads. During February, or excuse me, March, when what this report covers, there was only 2 incidents on the road. This is more akin to looking at those crashes that take place on 13 Mile, on Telegraph Road, on Franklin Road, whatever. So typically not a resident or an office worker, something like that, but literally someone traveling through in some cases. The only other thing I wanted to add to the report was today we put in service 4 new Motorola portable radios on the Oakland County radio system. It took just under a month for Oakland County to get them programmed, but these radios, valued at $30,000, was brought together under a grant from the Michigan Turnout Year grant program in 2023, of which Franklin, Bingham Farms, and Southfield Township participated. So Franklin acted as fiduciary for this, and I'm hoping they got their reimbursement. Did they? Maybe? Oh, boy, great. State. Okay, well, I'm hoping if you didn't get it, you'll have it soon. But I just wanted to thank you as a village and everyone that supported this. This is the first time in my 25 years where we've had an opportunity to act on a grant program and actually utilized all 3 jurisdictions that we represent in order to get that. So it really brings us to a point with the new radio system where we are only 1 radio away from being where we were in for the last radio system. However, at $7,000 a radio, I don't anticipate getting that last radio. It's not necessary, but from a safety perspective, it does significantly help our firefighters.
Cool.
So, other than that, pending your questions, that'll conclude my report. Yes,
I have
sir.
a quick question.
Yeah,
Can you just tell me what E4, POV, which are the
sure. E4, engine 4. So every one of all of our apparatus has a number
Right.
behind it. E4 is engine 4, that's our main
So that's the main
firefighter engine.
Fire truck, right?
POV is privately operated vehicle. So that would be what our volunteers are driving to get to the scene.
Gotcha.
C1 is my vehicle, L1, ladder 1, and then we have 2 Ts, tanker 5 and tanker 6.
And then there's an R7?
Oh, sorry, Rescue 7
Okay.
and Rescue 9. Rescue 7 is primary vehicle on medical emergencies, and Rescue 9 is a backup vehicle, but it is used by our folks who participate in the countywide hazmat team.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
This is cool. It's some,
Yeah, this is really cool.
yeah, neat stuff.
Way quicker to read.
Yeah.
Tony,
Yep.
would you talk about the budget issues and the concerns? Is this not the time to do that? I mean,
I'll answer whatever questions you want.
well, I have,
So-
you know, being on the fire commission,
Yeah.
I've been privy to more conversations about the fire budget, and
Right.
I think that there are some real issues going on that I just, please talk about.
Okay. So the fire department, as part of the annual process, we prepare a budget that is presented to both villages, Franklin and Bingham Farms. This year was a little bit different. We're facing from the fire department an increase in run volume and a decrease in participation. And I like is one of our captains and our treasurer, Rick Kozlowski, says, if each village would commit to 10 volunteers that would do firefighting and EMS, we'd be all set. And that's just not happening. So as a result, we are digging deep into looking at the future. So looking at the future entails several factors, and I'll try and keep it brief because I could talk for hours on this.
I think we need to hear it.
In terms of apparatus, what we are looking at is we are trying to plan a path forward for 20 years. With COVID, 2020 to 2022, 2023, we saw a very, very complete change in the business of industry in America. Supply chain issues, price increases, labor force decreases, and we are trying to stay abreast of that. But a 20-year turnout or a 20-year future forecast as an update in 2024 is vastly different from the last time we did this, which was in 2017. The numbers have increased exponentially. In turn, or in addition to that, we also are faced with all of the other normal increases that everyone faces, the cost of fuel, the cost of insurance, the cost of health care. And when we are dealing with this, also we look at support services like hose testing, fire ladder testing, that sort of thing. All of these increases are where they're at. We've tried to take our apparatus and we tried to extend the lifespan of each truck. There is no longer any kind of a X number of years and you get rid of it. Now it's as long as it passes inspections and testing annually, you keep it into place. However, with trucks getting older, there is more maintenance required. In the case of our rescue right now, Rescue 7, we're faced with another issue, which is parts availability. Because so many of these things are just no longer produced, we're having to look at third-party vendors, even getting parts on Amazon, which is not the greatest thing when it's a fire truck. Needless to say, we are trying to capture those costs so that way we can be affordable to the villages. In terms of personnel, we're faced with two issues. The first is with our full-time staff, we just don't have enough, and we need to expand on that. In terms of our per diem staff, our stipend staff, we just aren't getting those folks. The wages that we're paying are almost half of what every other agency that has stipend staff, and we need to improve that. We need to be able to draw additional folks. In terms of our volunteers, we do have 25 volunteers and we have 5 full-time staff, so I consider us a combination department. And I like to think that we are working towards the benefit of all in terms of our employees, whether they're paid or not. But the reality is that without having additional folks that are paid, we are going to come to a situation where we're not going to have enough folks to respond. We have taken every step that we can think of at present to leverage other departments in the area to assist us during times of need, such as fires and mutual aid, which we've done. We are part of a mutual aid group that encompasses 30 other fire departments in Oakland County. Plus, we can reach out to the other 13. There's one department in Oakland County that's not part of a mutual aid program. So we can eventually reach out to hit 95% of the fire departments in the county. We also have tried to deal with any situation that we can to save money. In the case of your agenda, you'll see next up is consolidation with, or movement of our dispatch service to Oakland County, which would end up saving us some money, but it also has many more important benefits to moving that, but I'll wait for that. Needless to say, the budget that we presented is, it's taken a long time for 4 or 5 of us that were on the group that created it. The fire department had some discussions with Village of Bingham Farms in terms of their leadership and their employee staff. We've also had a discussion with the Village of Franklin. This was mentioned 2 meetings ago, I think. Yeah, something like that, where we would still be more than willing to sit down to discuss the budget request. But we did have a discussion with Administrator Frazier and President Lamont, who took the time, and it was about 2 hours or so, to discuss things. And like I said, I think the most important thing is twofold. First off, from the village standpoint of our interaction as a contractor, we want to make sure that you know exactly what it is we're doing with the money that you're supplying for our benefit. And then from a village resident standpoint, we want to make sure that you understand how your fire department operates. We do have Bingham Farms, being the we, has set up a session, I believe it's on May 7th from 3 to 5 p.m., where I'll be over at the village office just for a special Ask the Chief, whatever you want. I may not have the right answer, but I'll give you an answer. And I'd offer the same thing for Franklin, but obviously any resident can be more than, feel free to call the fire station at any time. And I'll I'll answer whatever questions you have.
I think the thing that shocked me the most at the last meeting was the fact that Franklin needs more officers for a fire because we don't have, because we have well water. And
Correct.
because we have wells and we don't have city water, it takes more people.
Yes. Yes,
And-
so our 2 tankers are there for 2 reasons. From an insurance office credit standpoint, they're there because ISO, which is the rating agency around the country, has made a determination based on our jurisdiction of what we need for trucks. ISO, by the way, doesn't care about medical, it's only fire for insurance rates. But as a community that has well water, without hydrants, we are required to bring our own water. And when we run out, we have to go get more, which requires us to have more people to drive more trucks to go over to wherever it is we're going to obtain the water. And as a side,
Fire,
and as a side benefit, we typically go to Bingham Farms. So for years and years and years, Bingham Farms has allowed us to do that without invoicing or anything like that. But it does require additional folks, absolutely.
and I think, and a lot of the current volunteers that we have are getting older. And I know you had mentioned that you were hoping to hire another full-time person. But
We
we're
were,
waiting
yes.
to do that until a following year because.
Until March.
Until March.
Yeah, in looking at the numbers and the costs, it's a significant, the ask was 12.8%. I believe it's right around there. And yes, our volunteers, the average age of the volunteer firefighter in the U.S. is getting older. In Franklin, the last village resident who volunteered, who lives on McKinney, volunteered, I'm going to say it's close to 15 years ago. So everyone who lives in Franklin, with the exception of the person who rents the house next to the station, who's one of our full-timers, they're in their late 50s, early 60s, in some cases mid-60s. So this is I don't want to say a young man or an old man job, but this is something where people need to be conditioned in order to do the job safely.
What is the commitment for volunteering?
Participation, number 1, and then in terms of licensure and certification, firefighter 1 and 2, which is an academy-style format. It's 2 nights a week, 6:30 to 10:30, and some Saturdays, periods about 5 months long. EMT is the minimum medical certification. That is the same 2 nights a week plus Saturdays for about 4 months. Michigan is very unique because Michigan, each state controls their certification and licensing requirements. So where you would have firefighters, whether you're paid or not, or EMTs, whether you're paid or not, it's the exact same requirements. So we have some that do one or do the other. The reality is, I have one who's a neighbor of mine up in Foxcroft who's a paramedic. So he came down to just keep his skills up, and even though he's only doing medical stuff, we have trained him on how to support the firefighting side of it. But
There are volunteers that don't have to fight fires, they could do EMT and.
Absolutely.
behind the scenes.
absolutely,
That's great to know, because I'm sure there are
Yes.
people that are willing to do that, but don't want to be entering a fire.
that there are many jobs to do. We have firefighters who don't like to climb ladders. We have those who are claustrophobic. There are so many things that can be done on a fire scene that it works. It works for us, but we have to keep kind of, pardon the phrase, feeding the beast in order to keep it going. Yes.
But
So-
you're comfortable with waiting until March to hire, to look for that person? I know that
Right.
the initial request was to hire them sooner. and
It,
not-
it was, and so there's two sides of this, the same as what we find in the police side of the house. Just because you're hiring doesn't mean there's someone available.
Right.
And then finding the right person who's available, it takes a very special character to have someone working in Franklin Bingham Farms, not because of anything other than we go on 600 runs a year, where if you look at Royal Oak, they go on 6,000 runs a year. If you look at Farmington Hills, they go on 13,000 runs a year. So we're not all that busy, but we're busy enough. Number one. Number two, it's a very small agency. So if you look at a larger department, then you're going to find people will focus. City of Detroit, you'll spend the first 2, 3, 4 years on the back of a truck. Where in Franklin, you're going to be trained to operate every piece of apparatus safely and efficiently. So because everything changes based on the request for service. So we want to find that right fit. But we are using some of the budget money, if approved, to work on a recruiting, which would include a trifold brochure, which would include some website enhancements, even though it's far beyond me to program a website, but I think this is where people are going these days. Online applications, more information up front. We are doing what we can to get into the schools as we're invited to talk about the fire department. We just had one of our lieutenants over at McCombs Fire Academy to talk with their students about the opportunities for volunteering until they find a full-time job, which could be months, it could be years, but what we're finding now is the vast majority that are going in the service are getting their jobs right away, just because there's so much demand for staff. Sorry, I took way too long.
No, that's good.
Other council questions or comments? Tony, my personal perspective is you and the crew do a super job. I truly appreciate that, as well as I think all the people in the village.
Thank you.
And I certainly want to work with you to make sure that we provide the resources that you need to continue doing what you're doing, because all of us sleep better at night because we know that you and the police department
Thank
are
you.
out there.
We appreciate it.
So, cool. Very good.
Okay.
Anything else? We have a intra-local agreement here in the packet too. Can you give us a little bit
Certainly.
on that, please?
So the fire department does not provide its own dispatching service. Currently, we're using the services of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. Oakland County has been a wonderful partner in providing that service, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. It's been done under an interlocal agreement between the Village of Franklin and Oakland County. That agreement ended March 31st, excuse me. So with that said, and with the new radio system in place, it gives us a wonderful opportunity to try and move over to Bloomfield Township. The reason of Bloomfield Township providing the service is they're already providing it for the police department. One of the issues that we have, and you would never know it if you were calling 911, is that when you call 911, assuming you get to the local public safety answering point, which is Bloomfield Township, they end up call transferring you. That has created a little bit of a lag, in some cases seconds, in some cases over 2 minutes. And we want to shorten that up. We want to better be able to communicate with our police officers and vice versa. By going through one dispatcher, the dispatcher can go from one talk group or channel to another, where we, because of legal restrictions, we cannot talk directly from our main radio channel to the police main radio channel. So for them to talk to us, they would have to change their I'm going to call it a channel even though it's not, but they would have to change theirs. In this case, if we need to get a hold of them and we're using Bloomfield Township, it's that much quicker. If 911 calls are taking place, we can both be dispatched literally at the same time. So that way, it's a benefit to our residents and those that are requesting the service. In terms of cost, the cost is lower, and it will save us several $1,000s a year. So in doing our research with reference to the services that Bloomfield Township offers, they have 2 dispatchers on duty at any given time, plus they have a supervisor in the day. Their dispatch center is located in the police department, which is Long Lake-ish and Telegraph versus up in Pontiac. In terms of radio communications, they're already on the same system that we're using, and they've made modifications to accommodate our needs in terms of radio paging for our volunteers. In terms of their staffing, they have been fully staffed for several years now. They do not have a high level of turnover, which means their employees like their jobs. And when employees like their jobs, that says a whole lot about the situation that we're getting into. I've met with the police chief as well as the dispatch supervisor, and they have been absolutely wonderful and accommodating. So even though we don't partner with Bloomfield Township Fire on a whole lot of incidents, I think this is a great move. And I would, I wouldn't bring it forward to you if I didn't believe it personally, and I think we can only benefit from that.
What's your pleasure, council? You want to go ahead with this, or you want
The village is signing.
to, David and David?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry?
I only had one, like, I read it, I only had one, like, legal comment, one question, but I know David likes to read things more thoroughly, so what was the urgency of the April 10th? Was that just because it's 2 days from the date of this meeting?
No, it's because the contract expired the end of last month.
It did, oh, so our current contract's up, okay.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now? Still with the sheriff's department? in
We're
the
still with
interim?
Oakland County without a contract. They're still billing us, but
Okay. Okay.
going through corporate counsel has been interesting. I'll say that. The one thing I was asked to explain, the question comes up, why the Village of Franklin signing this versus the fire department? So the Village of Franklin, because it's an interlocal agreement, it provides immunities based on the actions of one jurisdiction assisting another. The fire department is a private corporation. We're a 501c4 nonprofit, but we don't have the authority to sign as a municipal agency or jurisdiction. As a result, just like with several of the other agreements that Franklin has signed, both with Oakland County for the hazmat team for prior dispatch, fuel cards, and whatnot, the request would be that the Village of Franklin sign off with Bloomfield Township, and then we act as your agent. And that would be in terms of providing the service, receiving the calls, and paying the bills. So that way, we're not asking the village to pay anything directly to Bloomfield Township, but just ask as the consumer, if you will, for the service.
So that was a question I had when I was reviewing this. What obligations change from the village's perspective, specifically liability insurance, and some of the things you were talking about?
So in terms of liability insurance, there's hold harmless clauses again, from one to the other. It does mandate that the fire department maintain insurance, which we do.
Yeah.
And that's not only part of this contract, but also the contract that the fire department holds with the Village of Franklin for the
Okay.
provision of
So
service.
not a serious change there?
There's no changes.
Okay.
Absolutely none.
Okay, thanks.
So we maintain at least 6 million, if not more, of liability coverage. And there's nothing that the Village of Franklin is getting into that I believe would be an individual or kind of an entity thing, but rather, as a municipal agency, the ability to sign, number one, allows the other municipal agency to provide the service. And number two, it supports immunities, governmental immunities in case there's actions. It doesn't absolve the fire department from any actions that we take.
Thanks.
You good?
I'm good. I guess the question that David Goldberg raised was, are we gonna take this up tonight? I'm ready to, but I don't
Good,
know
I
if
have-
everybody else is.
Or I think it's in the best interest of the fire
Yeah,
department.
I mean, I
too.
have a couple minor comments.
Yeah.
So
Go
I
ahead.
could, so I like the idea of the synergy between both your departments, all this coming out of one place, that's far better. Form of agreements, first time, is this following the dispatch agreement that we currently have
It
with
is.
the police department as far as format? It's very similar to this one with the,
Yes.
the police department, so, okay, so that's good, so this
The-
is,
the-
this
the base of the
form has
doc-
already been vetted out in general.
Yeah, the basis of the document was predicated on the Police Department Bloomfield Township Agreement, and it was also put through Bloomfield Township attorneys.
Yep.
It was provided to Franklin for vetting through your attorney, and it also went through the Fire Department attorney.
So my only comment, Peter, in the first paragraph, where it says by providing 90 days, just before 90 days at least. I mean, the way this reads, you have 1 day during the year, you can terminate it theoretically. So at least 90 days notice. This is only a year-to-year agreement, whereas the police agreement's a 5-year to 5-year agreement, so this.
No, they both should be year to year with 1-year
No,
extensions
no, no, I'm talking
automatically.
about police agreement with Bingham Farms is a 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
I'm
talking
just
about the
saying,
police agreement
this-
with Bloomfield
This, if it didn't
Township.
work out, it's a year, which I don't anticipate that at all. It's phenomenal the way it's going now, and it sounds like economically it's a better deal.
Right.
So that really just those words there. And then in the next paragraph, it says, this is what they're gonna provide. It uses the word contact and contacts. Dispatch services shall also include contact for support dispatching mutual aid services.
Yes.
So is contact a person or a connection?
Contact is another agency. It could be a
So
person.
that's a connectivity. It's not they're gonna provide us with a person we can call. It's that they will connect us to,
Correct.
so that's a connection, not a, like using the, when you say,
Okay.
sometimes a person can be referenced as a contact.
It could be a person, though,
Oh, it could be.
individually.
Okay.
The dispatchers now, during the course of medical events, as an example, you call 911 for a medical emergency, the dispatcher will activate, the police department will activate, the fire department, plus we'll call our third-party transport EMS unit. If there is a need for, let's say the ambulance isn't available, they'll call other EMS agencies, privates, and then they'll go publics. But if there's a need to request a very specific person, they'll call them too. And they will go off of any information that I provide to them in terms of those contacts. And those contacts could be made by radio, by phone, by computer. So it's kind of all over the place.
That's cool. As long as that's a proper term, I'm good other than
I'll
that one
defer,
comment.
I'll defer to you to tell me.
I just had a question. Why is this 1 year? Instead of multiple, I know it renews automatically, but is there an advantage in some way to have a 1-year agreement?
We base this agreement on the current Police Department Bloomfield Township Dispatch Agreement, which is the same verbiage in that capacity.
I see, no
Yeah.
other reason.
No,
Would you have it another way if you could?
no, doesn't matter.
Okay.
The radio, the interesting thing about, I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much here.
Not at all.
The interesting part about the new radio system is everything is computer-driven. So where we would go back 20 years, 30 years, we would have one radio system where we would talk to people and then one where we would page people out. That went away with the new county radio system. Now it's all built into one system. So it's literally for Bloomfield Township to take over or any other public safety answering point in Oakland County.
Okay,
It's probably 2 or 3 hours of reprogramming
oh,
of a dispatch console.
good.
So, yeah, it's a lot, there's a whole lot more in the backup.
Yeah.
But it is so much better. When we had, years and years ago, we were dispatched by a private EMS agency. If they went down, we had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Now we have redundancies, we have backups, we have other dispatch centers that can support.
Okay. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
And based off of that, I would imagine the on-ramping and off-ramping is substantially cheaper. Kind of.
There's no cost. On-ramping
So when I'm,
center to center.
yeah, so what I'm just saying is, entering into a new agreement, sometimes you have to get systems to talk to each other.
No.
But because we're bringing it up, it's gonna be minimal
There-
cost.
I don't think there'll be any cost.
Okay.
I know Bloomfield Township had spent some time working with Oakland County to learn the systems and the parameters. I don't believe there's any issue with funding required to get a new piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Everything should already be built in. I've not been led by Bloomfield Township that there would be any cost. Oakland County, there was in our old, in the contract that was put out, as was our old contract, there was talk about a cost to leave based on employee salaries and something like that. I've asked multiple times, I've never received an answer. My assumption as such is going to be there's no cost. I had worked with Bloomfield Township, and then going back to the dates, their township board has a meeting tonight. They have other items, weren't able to include it in the agenda. So they're looking at, I believe it was the 22nd or the 24th of April. And then we would start literally the next day or 2 days after. So it should be seamless.
So do somebody want to make a motion to approve this interlocal agreement for fire dispatch services between us and Bloomfield?
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocutory agreement, or interlocal agreement between the Charter Township, Bloomfield, and the Village of Franklin for fire dispatch services.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any changes, David?
Just
Did you
my
have?
one comment, if anyone knows of mine, other than that, looks good to me.
Does it require changes to this, or you, okay, it's just an
I think
interpretation issue?
you had a different verbiage for that line, didn't you?
No, I just like the words "at least" in front of the words 90, but outside of that, if this is all ready to go, I can live with it.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? So let's vote. All in favor of approving the interlocal fire dispatch agreement between Bloomfield and Franklin, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Very good. You're ready to roll.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Appreciate all you do. Okay, next on the agenda, Treasurer's Report. Vance is not here, but there is a written report, which is, the one big bill is $19,000 for road maintenance and salt services to Oakland County. 93,700 worth of bills. Okay, so let's look at the bills list, current bills, and have a motion to approve payment of $93,685.72 worth of bills. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any questions about the bills list?
I have one question. Who got new server? Is that for the office here? You guys got a new server? Or is this for a prior month? New server, MS Server 2022 software and 10 licenses. Oh, police department, my bad. You wish you got a new server.
Yeah, right. She was booked up.
Okay.
Well, if you need one, it's like the PD didn't have a problem getting one, so.
Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second to approve the bills list. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, got that done. Very good. Next thing, President's Report. Just got a couple of small things I wanted to talk about. I echo the comments about the event Friday night, or Saturday night, I'm sorry, with the kickoff of the bicentennial. It started out way out of my comfort zone, as with a lot of other people, but once we got into it, it was a lot of fun. So, the next event will be the Garden Club will sponsor a seed swap on April 22nd. It will be at the library during the library's normal hours, starting at 10 a.m. So if you want to get your garden rolling, that's the place to stop by on April 22nd. Then the next one, and then, well, I'll leave it at that, Memorial Day. There's the 11 o'clock ceremony will be a little different this year. It's going to feature a talk about 10 Civil War soldiers that are buried up there, and just talking about them, and it should be pretty interesting. So those are the next two. Then there's another 10 things on the list here, but so stay tuned. Lots of good bicentennial stuff coming. And the other thing, yesterday I got a note from Gary Roberts. Gail Timmis has officially resigned as a Historic District Commissioner, so we need to post that position to, I'm sorry?
You said Gary?
Gail Timmons.
Gail.
Gary is the chair.
No, I thought you said Gary had resigned.
No, Gary told me that Gail has officially submitted her resignation. So, Dana, you need to get the process rolling to get candidates, and hopefully next month we can fill that job.
Is that gonna be one opening or two openings?
One
then?
opening,
Okay.
just Gail's opening. Gary's still on. He's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Get it out there quickly, remember, it's almost impossible to
Okay.
do in 1 month if you
Yeah.
If I could
recall.
make a comment, Dana, there was a person
yes.
who was really qualified
Right.
that we passed over.
Jennifer Cook.
May I recommend that we call her?
Absolutely.
She's already.
She's already been called.
We've already done that.
Oh,
Right.
okay, is she gonna join?
No, she's eminently qualified. I just think
Yeah.
that we have a
Right.
process.
She's already resubmitted her application.
Good, well,
Okay.
that was the whole dialogue we had with her last time.
Yeah.
This is, what was it, 3 months maybe?
Yeah,
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 Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Perfect.
good.
yep, cool. That's all my comments. Council, any council reports?
Yeah, just a couple things. First off, for everyone who celebrated Easter, I hope you had a great Easter. For everyone celebrating Passover, happy Passover. We added Autism Awareness Acceptance Month to the agenda, so I'll speak to that once we get to it. And then the last thing is, we already approved the agenda, however, I see a couple folk in the audience, and don't wanna hold you up for your entire night, so I'd like to move the permit for Bring Your Own Dog, up in the agenda.
Sure, we can do that. Can I just do that now? And then we'll get back to our council report stuff. So, you guys wanna talk about Bring Your Own Dog?
Yeah, it's right up here.
So, every year for the last 7 years, we have held the BYOD Bring Your Own Dog event at the Franklin Municipal Park, and we were hoping that we could just get an approval to hold it there again this year on April 28th. And it would just be the same as every year. We're hoping to have food trucks and a dog fence where we can have dogs on the inside, and then it's a charity, so we're donating to Happy Paws Haven, which is a no-kill dog rescue shelter. Yeah, and then it's also, we're hoping to have a new addition to the event this year, and basically that's just gonna be like setting up, like people can have a little sheet and they can see on the website things that certain dogs need, and then they can directly purchase those items that the dogs are in need of.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's really nice. But it, just to, for my own clarification for yours, where you want it is on the Village Green, I think, which is where the library is.
Yes.
So that's called the Village Green.
Yes,
Just so
sorry.
you're the terminology.
Okay.
Because the park is a different thing, and you wouldn't be coming to the village to deal with
Okay.
the park, you'd be coming to a different group.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So there's a civic events permit in the packet here. We need a motion to approve this, and then we can
Did we
have
approve it?
A second.
second. Any further discussion or questions?
Well, it's an awesome event. You guys are getting to be veterans at this.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck at your event on April 28th, right? Yeah. Cool, okay.
Have a good
You
night.
too, thank you.
Council reports, any other
I do.
council, Kathy?
And we asked so. All right, so last week I spoke with multiple Franklin business owners who have expressed concern about business being slow. These owners specifically expressed upset with Franklin's $100 yearly business fee, feeling that it is excessive and that council doesn't appreciate their situation. While $100 might not seem like much to some, several of our business owners are single parents who have invested everything into their businesses. This is not just a hobby to them, every penny matters. When there are issues with the buildings, the $100 business fee has clear purpose and is necessary to cover the cost of the inspector's time and expertise in bringing the space up to code. But once that space has been determined to meet all requirements, the building inspector simply walks in, sees that nothing has changed, and updates a form. So why should compliant businesses and building owners each be charged $100 every year for essentially nothing? In fact, after our building inspector built in and evaluated my building, he offered that it would be sensible to move to an every 3-year inspection cycle for businesses that previously have been determined to be in good condition. This will allow our inspector to focus his time and efforts on buildings in need of his attention, and additionally, this will show support and appreciation for those businesses and business owners who are acting as good stewards of our historic buildings. So this is my recommendation, and I would like to make a motion now. I move that for those businesses and business owners with spaces found to be up to code and in good standing, that we change Franklin's building inspection requirement and $100 fee to an every 3-year inspection and payment cycle.
Do we want to consider that at this moment on the agenda, or do we?
To move it to discussion, do we have to get a second?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if that's the motion, I'll have second for discussion purposes. And I'll lead off the discussion. I have no qualms with it. I would just ask that we move it to next month so that we can have it written down and kind of evaluate the exact motion in written form for words, so that we know exactly what it is.
It's pretty clear. Just we're moving it from every year to every 3 years for businesses that have been found up to code and in good standing.
I would like to have an opportunity to review this with our building inspector.
Is there an urgency? Is the fee due in the next month? Is
No.
that?
No, we do it at the end.
It's already been done.
Okay,
There's no
so
urgency.
then let's
Okay.
let's run it through the normal channels,
Okay,
which should go through legal and then bring it back next month and get it on the agenda, and so that everybody can read it in next month's packet. I mean, that,
Okay.
the concept
Yeah.
in general. I care less about the collection of the $100.
Right,
I'm not a huge
exactly.
fan of waiting 3 years to get back in buildings, so.
But if they're in good standing, they're in good standing
Yeah,
usually.
but things change in the course of 3 years, so, that's more of my issue. I don't care about the $100 we make.
it'll give us a month to,
Well, it does require an amendment to your existing code to make that change, so.
okay.
All right, well, again, if it's already been paid for this year, then the concept is fine. The change to the code through planning, which should take one meeting. So, I don't have a problem with it, but I agree with,
For more
Like to
detail,
go
it's
to
section
the proper channel.
810.04, if you guys want to review before.
one more time?
810.04. It's a 2-sentence ordinance.
To change $100 fee and timing.
Are you done? I wanted to make a comment.
Go ahead.
So,
2020?
it always makes me a little nervous if somebody comes and says, I've been talking to business owners, and then boom, this is what I want.
Well, we've been talking about this for a bit, but it seems like it's excessive.
Well, so there's no one from Main Street here, and they.
Because Jeremy's
have-
got a fever. He was gonna be here. He
Yeah,
has a fever.
and I would look for their input on this.
I did.
I agree with,
let her talk.
So let's roll it over to
I
next
would
month.
well, I also want to make a point for the record that we have only had building inspections for 3 years. We have a problem with rickety buildings. It seems counterintuitive to me that we would suspend those under the circumstances, but I'll be ready to talk about it when we get together next week. I guess also, if you're gonna use a phrase like I've been talking to business owners, I'd like to know how many. I'd like to know what they said. I'd like to know who is, who doesn't have an issue with it and who does. And I think I'd also like to have an opportunity to, let's talk to the Main Street Board about maybe subsidizing some of those those business licenses. If it's $100 is gonna drive somebody out of the village, I think we can figure out a way to cover that for them.
I was just,
Okay.
You
I
know-
was just responding to literally Bill didn't came into my office. He said to me, has anything changed since last year? He had come 2 years in a row, had changes the first year, no changes the second year, third year. He said to me, oh, good, okay, we're good, here's your thing, that's it. And he truly offered to me, he said, this is my recommendation, if you have, and so I was following up on that, and because I was going to different businesses asking for donation basically for ads for the welcome book, and they're like, you know what, we really can't afford $100, $150 ad because we don't have enough people coming and buying things, and that was really, and then we started talking about other things, and that's how this came up.
If it's a basis of a recommendation, then I'd like to see numbers. I'd like to see who, you know, how many, and just like, even if it's a tiny little study, some objectivity other than, you know,
I
anecdotes.
can tell you
Yeah.
that I spoke with Jeremy about it, and Jeremy planned to come today. Jeremy has a fever, but Jeremy did speak to the other people on Main Street, because he didn't
Yeah.
want to come here to speak without having an agreement from everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll carry this over till next month. and-
Is it okay if I
Oh,
make
do
a
you have
comment on
something related to
it?
this?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So it was, ordinance was passed, I believe, in 2020, right?
That's correct, yep.
So it did go through planning commission during that time frame. It was actually one of the first things that I remember working on. Council had sent it to planning for review for the ability to inspect businesses downtown because of the state. As Chairman Goldberg mentioned, you were actually the chairperson of the planning commission when we recommended the ordinance update to council. I recommend that as part of your discussions, you also research into the motivation behind why we passed the ordinance or why we recommend the ordinance to to council, and then council and why council recommended it to us. So there's a much bigger picture than just $100 and an annual inspection. It may not seem, on the surface, it may seem trivial to have it, especially if a building is in good standing from year to year. But there's also things happen. We have the dry cleaner incident, right, where we have to abate for contamination in our water well. There's other things that go on that you might not register or know about that might happen inside the buildings from year to year, and having an ability to go in and check the buildings to make sure they're okay is not a bad thing.
No, I think there's nothing wrong with it at all. I think it's wonderful. My question for you was, when you guys were doing it, though, wasn't it $25 and then we increased it to $100? Wasn't that, that's.
I don't remember the numbers
I think you're
exactly.
right.
That's what I remember.
Right.
So when it was 25, it's no big deal to come every year. That's not a hardship on a business. But when you're getting from $100 every single year, when they literally walk in the door to do nothing,
I mean,
that's the issue.
Well, council, you're able to make that decision based on what you research. I just wanted to at least give you a primer as to some of the conversations we've had in the past and where to look for previous conversations from council as well as from planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so,
I have one more comment on that too. I believe that we charge a fee for fence permit, right?
different issue. though.
No, I'm just saying that there's fees charged that accompany the work on behalf of the village. So you have to give a salary to a building inspector, an ordinance inspector, and we charge fees in order to compensate for that. It also keeps everyone recorded and making sure that you pay into a system that you reap benefits from, whether it's a fence, a golf cart, a business, an event, renting the Krieger House. Obviously, we lose money, but we still charge $40 an hour. We still charge $200 a day. And so we have a lot of, these fee-based services. And so to like Kathy's point, I wouldn't mind, and I know libraries are starting to get rid of fees too, because they're saying that it's not really helping people. So, maybe that's a larger discussion. Like, do we need fees? Are they negatively impacting the community? I know West Bloomfield Library has gotten rid of their fees because they're saying that it's deterring people from coming into the library, and that the administrative cost of chasing fees and recording them and tracking them is costing more than the fee themselves. I can send you that article too, but it was interesting because it's like, what's the purpose of these? Are they serving the purpose? Are they paying for what they're intended to pay for? Or should we kind of rethink what they're intended to do? And if we just want someone to maintain their business, maybe we can go about it in a different way.
So let's put this on next month's agenda and we'll have time to, okay. Any other council report comments or issues? Okay, so we'll move on to Roger, administrative report.
Yes, I'd like to spend this time focusing a little bit on the Pickering Barn. You each received last week material from me that provided some background on where we are with that, the conversation that we've had with Oakland County about funding, and some proposals that have been put together that provide some images as to what the location of the barn at the 14-mile and Franklin Road site might look like. What I'm interested in this evening is to have some discussion around proceeding to bring this to some sort of a conclusion. Pam's been involved in a lot of these conversations, particularly with the county, and we'd like to sort of air this out for a few minutes tonight and see whether or not you have continuing support for our proceeding with this project.
Comments?
Is that, was that a question? Like general question?
Ultimately, I would like to.
I mean, if a general question, if you're just asking a question, are you interested in proceeding with the idea of getting control of the barn and trying to get Marcia and other third parties to pay for it? Yes, I support it.
Yes, I support.
That's what I'm after.
I think the option at a commercial building at 14 in Franklin.
Well, I don't know if that answer has to be answered right now. I think the question is, do we want to make efforts to try and gain control of that barn using the county's resources and whatever resources we could maybe get from the owner of the property and what have you, to gain control of it for whatever period of time the county will allow us to control it before they say you need to either take action, or my guess would be there would be others that would be in line waiting to take it if we couldn't do something with it. But if the answer is if we get first dibs at it and we can get it and it's not gonna cost us 100%.
The concept that I've been working with others on is that we would secure the building now, get it away from, get it back, take it apart and get it stored.
Get it off that site.
Yeah.
Right.
And give ourselves time then to work out what we do with it.
I mean, if you watch the Commission's last meeting, John Bry spoke at length about various funding resources, none of which we had really contemplated when we thought about this before, and that $2 million number was thrown at us, and it was like, all right, well, if there's agencies out there throwing millions of dollars around to renovate things and turn parking lots into parks, and we need, and again, that opens the whole door of all three of those options again now, instead of having to do this whole public-private partnership, getting it back and connecting it to the barn back there and having a huge facility and moving this thing over there and turning this into whatever, and someone paying to do that, that's not ours? 100%, 100%.
100%.
Does that give you?
Well, so again, I just think though that I don't know that that gives you necessarily the direction, because at the end of the day, the material question is, us acquiring it would be upfront. It either costs us money or it doesn't, right? So the pursuit, are you asking to continue to pursue grant opportunities in order to fund that? I think we need to, as a collective body, provide more direction, because I'm of the stance that I do not want to put public dollars towards it. And so that's where I'm saying, if it's to pursue grants to be able to store and figure out some type of a partner, sure. Do I want to invest our public taxpayer dollars into it?
No.
No, I do not.
What we've been working toward is consistent, frankly, with what you just said, is getting other agencies to provide the money with which to do this. And I don't believe that there's been any assumption on our part that the village is ready to put money into this project.
Okay.
But it seems to me that we have to be a driver on this. And that if, in fact, we participate in that acquisition, that we need to be committed to getting it somewhere, whatever that means. But the assumption is from my point of view, that what we're trying to do is to get it secured, get it disassembled, get it stored, and then have the serious conversation about what the hell do we do with this now that we got it.
So my understanding from the planning commission is that you all have a subcommittee dedicated to it, right? That was previously stated. So to me, again, it's the direction from council that we want to try and, that we continue the path of trying to find an investor or someone who will take it in that plot that we've been talking about, and then leveraging your position as the village administrator representing Franklin to help access those grant funds.
But that purchaser could be Main Street.
It could be. I won't say that it can't be. That's not.
Pragmatically, probably not.
Yeah, it seems to me that that ought to be a low priority alternative.
Okay. What's the low priority alternative?
Main Street owning it.
Okay. So, did you have a chance to read that email that Raj sent out?
Yeah.
Okay, so that, my sense is in talking with Susan and with Peter Halleck, who, and Pete's really been, leading this. And is that, I feel pretty clear that in January, the council made its position clear about using public dollars. It's in the record. I've never had a conversation with anybody to the contrary, but you restated it, and I think we all are on the same page. This is one of those projects that doesn't have a clear, the vision hasn't yet been defined for that. The priority is to secure the barn right now. It's to get it out of where it is, label the boards, wrap it up, and get it into storage. The cost is going to be about $100,000 to $120,000 per Pete's estimates. There are peripheral issues like, who should own the barn? If we get money from the county through Commissioner Gershenson and some grants that John Bry is working on, I'm sorry, Stuart, do you want me to?
my point.
Oh, and the third
Sit
leg,
down.
the third leg of that stool is crowdfunding, is raising money, private money from people to make up the rest of the bill to secure that barn. Then we can begin to think about the future of the village and what we want the village to, how much control does the village council want to exercise over this? There's lots of conversations to have after this. Right now, it's do we want to support, stand behind the people who are working on gathering funds and working out the snags to own this barn? That's, I think, the question that's on the table right now.
I agree with that, Pam, and I thank you for the summary because I think that was very concise and clear. The reason that I keep bringing up that point is because I don't want to pursue grants where a condition of it is that the government owns the building or the local municipality or village owns the building.
Honestly, I think that's a discussion that we all need to have. Your one viewpoint, maybe others feel differently.
That's my point.
But if we don't do something now, we end all discussion because the barn's gone.
Yeah, I need to understand what's the problem with ownership. If there's no more cost to carry, because it's baked into the original number for as long as we get to have control of it, and there's no liability, it's gonna be sitting in a container somewhere. I need to understand what
But
the downside of.
again,
having it
are we writing a proposal that just says, store the building for an undetermined future use?
Well, no, I
That
think
seems
that's
like,
what's still being vetted out. I
That
think
is
the question
not
is,
what-
do they will still want us to support them continuing to pursue
That's what
finding
we
all
need to
that
do.
information out?
Yeah.
Or are we like,
Yeah.
nah, this thing's just not
I
gonna
mean, the
work?
people who are working on this, Pete and Stuart and others, they don't want to be going out talking with the landowner and making commitments on the part of the village if the village council isn't
Right, if they
saying
don't
yes.
want it, yeah.
So
Exactly.
I would be very comfortable if council, through a motion or a resolution tonight, said we stand by the Peter Halleck and the Main Street Board and the Planning Commission in pursuing, this barn. If you just want to do it informally, I think they have to tell us if that's
Yeah,
good
I
enough.
think it goes
But-
back to Commissioner Gershenson to advise us what is the next step in order for us to begin that process.
She
If
has
the
said
question
there's
is,
one-
do we
there's-
want that process to continue and begin, then I think the answer is yes. We want
Is it
that.
yes? Is it, are you hearing yes? Okay.
So,
So I think it's all fair and accurate, you know, and Marcia's concern is that, you know, actually, she's motivated and really behind the idea. She really doesn't have many concerns. She's willing to ask for this funding, and it seems like the Oakland County Commissioners have these funds available, and she's willing to get those funds to us. The ownership issue is relevant. John Bryce described many cases where Main Street Franklin is the owner of a building as a nonprofit, and that seems to be one of the options to do it that way.
So can somebody summarize then, we're talking about an ownership issue, what is the ownership issue?
The only issue that I'm aware of is that Commissioner Gershenson has said that that the building needs to be owned by a public entity.
Or a nonprofit.
Or a public or a not-for-profit. That's it. What she doesn't want to have happen is that she spends taxpayer money. Pete and his crew raise money. John Bry brings in state and federal money, and then we give it away to somebody who wants to have a cute barn. She's trying to protect, she's had some experience with that happening.
Right.
So and that conversation is ongoing. Roger is working with Peter, and they're working it out. I don't know what the answer is yet. It may be that they'll come back to the council and say, the way things are falling, the county would be more comfortable with an agreement with the village. We've got lots of agreements with the county. Or it could be that it could be owned by the 501c3 Main Street Franklin. That is not unheard of. It happens, there's 5 other communities in Oakland County that have their Main Street, their not-for-profit owns property, owns a physical property. So there's lots of precedent. It's not like we're doing something that nobody's done. We just have to get the nuts and bolts figured out.
so why don't, you kind of talked about a motion. Why don't you make a specific motion? Let's second it, and let's decide if we want to approve Pete and the crew to continue their efforts to preserve it.
I'm happy to do that. I know that Stuart and Pete have both been at the podium, and I was talking, so if either of you have something to say, please.
Right, no, I think you summarized it well.
Guys,
Okay, so let's,
so one thing, there's been a lot of talk of what Commissioner Gershenson has said. So can we either hear that from her or see something in writing from her that sort of supports that she is committed to, whether it's her own discretionary fund she is, or something that she has to take back to the commission for approval on? I don't know what gambit it falls under.
I mean, we can. She did state
Yeah, I'd
it.
like to know that is,
She stated it in the recorded Zoom meeting.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
And I have an email and I have text
Okay, good.
messages.
All right, so that's all, yeah, I haven't
We have-
seen anything. All
sure.
right, well, good,
So-
then
so
we're
let's-
covered. then.
okay, so
Okay,
let's,
good.
okay.
Then, yeah, let's move this forward.
So I'd like to move, how do you say this? I'd like to make a motion that the
That we support,
village
yeah.
council supports the efforts being taken by several villagers, including the planning commission and Main Street Franklin board, to secure the
preserve it.
Pickering barn for preservation.
Yep, that's good enough.
That's it.
Second?
Yeah.
I second.
But have we not, we previously authorized the planning commission to move forward with this, so I don't understand what the motion changes from status quo.
It only formalizes it more.
It was formalized by a previous vote.
No, the previous, if I remember correctly, previously, we had been given direction to continue to consider the use of the Pickering barn with the pursuit of finding someone to fund the barn, not necessarily owned by the village, because that was the limitation that we were working under.
But that's, so, sorry to cut you off, but to that point, my whole thing that I was stating is that if the material thing is that the village owns the Pickering barn, that should be the motion, not just general pursuit, because those are two completely separate
So
considerations.
do you want to amend your motion?
I don't want to make that motion because I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
Okay,
So
I
that's-
would like a legal opinion on, and whether this is a smart move for the village, because we have an option with the Main Street 501c3.
And to finish answering David's question, though, this is out, what was being motioned, the motion today is outside the bounds the planning commission was given. We were given permission to continue to pursue how we would go about developing the Pickering barn, as well as considering an outside entity owning and transferring the barn within the village and how that would work. But as far as like whether Main Street owned it or whether the village owned it, this is outside those bounds from what I understand, because we were, based on what had been previously agreed upon by council, it precluded us from taking advantage of some of these grant opportunities that this motion is allowing us to pursue. That's really the biggest difference from what we've been previously allowed to do versus what we're what's being asked today, and what Roger's been able to put forth in that memo that you shared. And so anyway, that's really the biggest difference.
Are you comfortable with the words that Pam in the motion that's on the table?
I am, but Pete, I think you're more intimately familiar with it than me. So if you're okay with it, then
Okay.
okay.
Okay, very good. So, any other discussion? Let's,
Could somebody restate the motion?
Do you have it written down, Dana?
Not all the way.
Okay. What have you got? I can try
The
it
answer is
again.
no, we can't.
Okay, I can try it
Try
again.
okay.
If you'll accept a,
Yeah, believe me.
okay, I move that the Franklin Village Council supports the individuals and the committees currently pursuing acquiring the barn to do so. For, acquiring the barn for the purposes of preservation and storage, to do so, with the support of the council. I've already said that twice.
Okay, that's, okay.
Are you satisfied, David?
I would like it more narrow to be specific around pursuing grant funds. Again, back to the narrowing, not the acquisition of it at all costs, right? Because we still would need it to come back, and I suppose would any decision need to come back to us? What I don't want is we collectively here are stating what we're looking for is providing enough authority to the planning commission and anybody who's working on this project to be able and go and have conversations to seek grant funds. What I don't want to happen is that then gets morphed because we provided too broad of a motion that then results in something outside of just seeking the grant funds in a proposal.
Well,
I think we're making a lot bigger deal of this
Yeah,
than we need to,
My
guys.
general question is, why do we need a motion at all? What do we, right now,
We need it for Marcia.
that's my question. Has Marcia reached out and said, in order for me to take it to the next level, I need something from a governmental agency saying that we support this? Or are we just doing this to give them a warm,
Yeah,
fuzzy
comfort.
feeling?
my motivation is we want to give them the warm fuzzies and the security
do that verbally.
to speak for the village on this. But I believe it will, I think we're enhancing the conversation with Commissioner Gershenson if we can say we passed, the council supports continuing this effort to acquire and preserve the
Back up on
barn.
the speak on behalf of the village. I don't, not, that's part of a motion. I'm not supporting anyone to speak on behalf.
I
of the
didn't say
village,
that was a
yeah.
part of the motion.
Right, I mean, I thought, I didn't, the only time constraint that I am aware of is the time constraint from the owner of the property's urgency that says, I have to deal with this eventually. And of course, the urgency of getting it to Marcia so that she can take action.
Right.
I
But
can answer
unless-
that.
Unless somebody's asking us for a specific type of motion, in which case I'd like to understand what it is they're asking of us to create. I don't know if we need a motion just to have them continue gathering information, which seems to be all that you're still doing.
Peter, can
So
you address the issue
explain to
of
me what you
what do
need.
we really need?
So, yes, I guess it's what Pam said. It adds to our likelihood of getting the grant if we have something indicating trustee support at this point.
Okay,
And it, doesn't need to really go beyond that.
is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as the motion, and I know that where David's going with this is with the understanding that none of this is based upon the understanding that the Village of Franklin's planning on participating in the financial aspect of it at this stage.
Right.
Somebody comes to us a later date and says we need $5,000 to put this thing over the edge and it's a done deal, that's a different story.
Right.
Right,
But
no,
that-
I mean, I think we've been pretty clear on that in the beginning, that, there's a lot of funding available. The one particular grant that is associated with a crowdfunding has a matching component to it.
Right.
And Main Street Franklin, John Bryce said, I'll set that up for you. So, I think that this motion of support would be very positive and help us move along.
And again, my only continued concern, though, is exactly what you said, David, and the element of the conversation around ownership. Because again, we're talking about it not costing the village anything. If the village is the owner, it's a cost in perpetuity, just as the Krieger House is. So that's where I keep looping
David, the
back. on
ownership we're talking about is it's stored at the barn in a container. That's the ownership. we're talking
No,
about.
grants are conditioned on certain things. So for us to get approved for a grant, it would be under the condition that something actually be done with it. I'll just cut myself off, Roger. Fill in the blank.
What,
Two
we're
different
at
grants. Two
a
different
rather simple spot at the moment. The assumption is that there's a whole lot of planning that needs to be done about what's gonna happen with the barn. This is intended to be a contingency circumstance where we set it up so that we can have that conversation and know that the barn is within our control. It doesn't own, we don't own it, but we have managed to acquire enough money, so that we can get the barn disassembled, put together like a puzzle, and stored. And then we're expecting that we're talking 24 to 36 months of work on putting together a plan that would get the building in the community, according to all of those things, David, that you and others have just been talking about. That all we're talking about at this point is just getting the barn secured and doing it without our money.
Okay.
Can I make a public comment?
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Do you have other comments now or questions?
No, then I would only, and again, this may be unnecessary, but just condition that the authorization, or clarify that the authorization that we're putting forth, or the motion, does not provide authorization for the expending of public
Are
funds.
you okay with amending that?
We can amend my
I
motion.
don't think anybody in the village can expend funds on our behalf, a resolution coming through this body,
Any-
even if they say they are.
Right.
Yeah, my operating presumption is that we're responsible to you guys. And that to the extent that we get to something that's different or somewhat different than what we've talked about this evening, you're gonna know about it.
Right.
And you're gonna have to respond to it.
Yeah, especially the ownership thing.
Right, so I guess we're just telling them, keep doing what you're doing and come back to us when you get stuff to talk about. Okay.
Yeah. and-
So let's just, okay,
and-
so then we have a motion and an
We have a
amendment.
motion and a second.
Let's vote
Yeah,
on that
and
motion.
if now that there's an amendment, there's a motion that they can show to
Yeah.
people at the county that says,
Yeah.
look, Franklin Village is definitely supports pursuing this, then that's been accomplished.
All right. All
do
in
it as
favor?
something
Oh,
to
You have
yeah.
public comments.
Sorry, why public funds and not village funds? Because grant
Village.
comes, okay, just
Yeah,
clarify.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
because the
sorry.
grant money comes from
No,
public
no, I
funds.
appreciate it, thank you.
Okay,
Hold on.
okay, all in favor?
No, you have
Opposed?
public comments.
We have.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Before you guys close this, the one thing that I see that's drastically different from this is there's been no public support. And there's other issues and agenda items that you guys have asked people to go back and show your public support. In 5 months, this entire council will flip, 4 of the seats will flip. And to Roger's point, we're talking a 24 to 36-month long-term pursuit. And 2/3 of the council, or 66%, are going to be changed in the next 5 months. The Planning Commission has worked on this for 7 or 8 months and doesn't have a long-term goal. This isn't a startup. It's not an entrepreneurship. We can't just say, let's wait for some crowdfunding, let's get some venture capitalists. You are responsible to your taxpayers. If you do not have a plan, you all take an oath, you have a seat of public trust,
That's
you
exactly
cannot
what we're
spend it. All I'm saying is there is an echo chamber in here. The people from the Planning Commission are on the Historical Society. The people that are driving it on the council are from the Historical Society. So apart from a passion, and it should be the pursuit of the Historical Society, does this serve the needs of your constituency? Because there's other things, and we don't even know if it's legal yet, because we have yet to understand if we can acquire property. There's other barns in here that have not been fully utilized for decades. And so please, before you support your own pursuits in the echo chamber that is this 8-person room, please consider the data, the demographics, the use, the expense, the cost, and other things that have come to a vote that the citizens have said they want, they need. Sidewalks, community, more connected space, more places to go freely with family, more digital access to you. You keep on saying no one's coming here. Why do you think no one comes here? Look what we have to do to come here. You don't connect to your constituents in the way that they absorb their information. Everyone's reading information on Instagram, on their phones, on Twitter, on social media. And you purposely make it a hardship for people to come here and involve themselves and say their opinions. And then when they don't, you say, oh, no one's coming here to show up. Well, no, because we have this to do.
It's time to move on, Angelique. Thanks for your comments.
Angelica, what's the relevance of the two?
We've got a
We're
motion.
working on communication, we're trying to put a reader board outside as one of the means. I don't understand the relevance between other things that we need to spend money on and us saying we don't want to spend a dime on this. Please go find a way for someone to get an asset for us. And remember, and respectfully, I hope that everybody on this council does what I do and actually go online and either go to or watch the planning commission meetings every month. Having sat there for 15 years, they do the vetting of this village. They do the dirty work. And John Bry came and spoke at great length and detail at their last meeting of all kinds of different ways that money can be spent, including going back to using it for public purposes. There were 3 proposals that were put out there. 2 of them were to put it on public property. One of it was to include it with the Krieger complex to, at some point, have us not in this building in something that's better housed. And according to John Bry, I don't know, this year alone, I think $5 million is being given to county communities for, as I mentioned earlier, one local community, very affluent, to turn a parking lot into a civic center. I could certainly think that if we needed $2 or $2.5 million to get a village hall expansion and a village meeting place that we don't have here in Franklin, probably could get pushed up a list ahead of things like communities getting parks. So if all we're asking them to do is go find out what's available, then I'm missing
Well,
what the
we've got
problem is.
a motion, we've approved it. Let's move on.
I think the relevance is just the time and the energy. Like Stuart has come up here a lot of times and said, like, we're not
not
clear,
the
we're
point.
spending, no, he asked a question, I'm answering it, Bill. He said, what's the relevance? The time, the energy, the direction, and their expertise. I just don't want it to be a dead end.
It's not.
Okay, it's not,
Are you
okay.
wasting your time?
Well, he doesn't know yet, if
It's a
after,
tremendously beneficial thing. You know, I think this is the kind of thing the villagers want. They
he
want
thinks,
they
but
want
there's
those-
no
Well,
show of
I've lived
support.
here, you know, only that I've lived here for 30 years, I've watched how the village has changed. You know, this is all about civic involvement, historic
Right.
preservation, economic revitalization, getting people downtown. And it's being done voluntarily. You know, we aren't taking up a lot of time, and we'll have a lot more opportunities to get more public involvement. But I do see it's there, and I think it's part of our job as local government to take care of things like this and to do this type of thing.
Okay, let's move on. Planning
One-
Commission?
I really have to make a comment.
Okay.
So, because I'm picking up on David, what David said, which is it's really important to know. That the $5 million that David was talking about, that John talked about at the Planning Commission meeting, and I urge you to watch that, because it's really good. The 13 Oakland County communities got parts of that $5 million. The reason they got the money is they had projects that were shaped up enough, that had a vision, that had a funding source, that had engineering reports, site plans, all that stuff. We didn't. And so we got kicked out. We had great ideas, but we hadn't taken them anywhere. So I think part of what might be irritating about asking the council to make a motion of support, it's like we got to just keep moving on this so that we can get in line with other communities when this money, and there will be more, I don't know for how long, but I want us to get in line for that.
Right.
But we have to do our homework, and that's part of what this is, very honestly. I'll fill in the rest of it.
All right, very good. Let's move on.
We didn't vote.
You're gonna vote.
Yeah, we did.
Did we vote?
Dana, did we vote?
I don't think we voted. No, we didn't vote.
We started
Okay, all in
because-
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? Okay,
thank you.
okay. Stuart? Planning Commission report.
Sorry. You can give the report for me. They got to start early, right? I mean, public speaking is important for them to learn. For Planning Commission report from March, our March meeting, we did have a public hearing to consider the what's colloquially known as the artificial turf regulations. After having the public hearing, we did have a few people show up in support of the ordinance. However, there's still concerns with from within the commission on unintended consequences of how the wording is written for the ordinance, and we want to make sure that we're clear in what we're excluding and not just excluding too much. There's also some concerns with regards to how far we are going overreaching in that in property ownership, and also maintaining safe drinking water within the village, or any other side effects that could occur. But we decided to continue discussing it at this point.
Okay.
We also have prepared, it's not in your packet today, but we prepared an annual report for 2023. That will be in your packet for next month, and you'll be able to read through the different things that we went through. It'll be a summary. We won't need to go into a detail here, but mostly just a submission from the Planning Commission for the 2023 report will be in your packet for next month, if not sent out this week for you to review anyway. Additionally, I was remiss in last month's meeting from requesting the council permission to circulate the current revision of the master plan for review within local or local municipalities. So part of the master plan process is to not only to write a master plan every year, but as we go to every 5 years, but as we go to progress the master plan to adoption, one of the steps is to also take that plan and circulate it amongst our peers and other communities locally, and to see how the impact it might have on their communities and give them a chance for feedback. So we do need permission to do that before we even have a public hearing, so that way we can feedback that input into our master plan that we then pass to you up ahead.
It's not implicit that you do that?
No,
It's just
it
part of the
wasn't
process, isn't it?
I did not request it explicitly. Yes, the fact that you agreed with the goals and values that we had updated, yes, that was clear, but I did not specifically
I thought
say.
our ordinance said that's part of the process, no?
For the,
I don't have a problem doing
Oh,
it.
I just need I would like to have a motion and approval to circulate our master plan to local communities so they can feedback, because they get 90, I think it's 60 to 90 days to review
Okay,
it.
so somebody needs to make a motion that the planning commission has authority to circulate the master plan to local communities.
Yes.
Somebody make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just when you, don't forget, as part of the master plan review, to also do a master plan or future land use map review.
Yes, which I believe, that was talked about last month, right, for creating new maps? No, that's a different thing, okay.
No, I mean, the map is part of the master plan, and there are properties on there based along the whole lines of it, with discussions we had during the public institutional about some of those properties and their future,
Future use,
their
okay,
future uses.
okay.
Like the corner that we're now discussing to be commercial zoned office.
Right.
We've got the church, which is, you know, future land use public institutional. If that wasn't a church and it became open to the public, we would hope that that would not necessarily.
Needs to be
remain
updated.
public Institutional, but,
Okay,
so those are some of the things to look at.
thank you, thank you.
Okay. So
Thank
you
you.
got what you need?
I believe so, yes,
Okay,
hopefully.
okay.
I'm looking at you, Roger, because you're gonna,
We're still talking, I guess we saw.
yeah, I'm still, go
Oh,
ahead.
no, you finish your stuff. I wouldn't.
We never took a vote on it.
Yeah, you motion, yes, but,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
thank you.
next.
Also, we began looking into cellular service ordinances and modernizing it in accordance with the current, well, we tabled it actually. We did not talk about the ordinance with regards to the amendment to modernize it with the current state's regulation. However, we're waiting to hear back from a meeting we had with Eagle Legal, I'm sorry, Am Legal, which it took place end of last month, to go over what ordinance, I guess, the initial discussions on how we move forward with recommendations from Am Legal. So we're going to, we had some initial discussions. We'll continue that discussion, and then this will be part of that package as we talk about other ordinances. We'll bring up the list, and this will be one of the top ordinances. Yes.
Well, on that note, I think we discussed this in legal. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was sort of M Legal, the company that we hired's opinion that in this particular instance, there isn't necessarily any sample ordinance that they were gonna provide us that wouldn't be better than what Chris
Right.
Susan being on the ground and in touch with our local, we're better off just let Chris continue. If the ordinance that gets, you know, drafted and
Whatever
runs
he
through
comes
here,
up
if that needs to get vetted at some time in the future
Yep.
as part of this ongoing process, fine. But I don't think they were gonna provide a better
That's right.
sample ordinance than Chris was gonna.
Right,
Yes, that is correct. I remember that being discussed in that meeting. So we will, in this case, even though there are other ordinances that we are going to be receiving from them, they also mentioned there are other ordinances as well. They might not give us an exact template on, but a recommendation as to what's out of compliance. So yes, and we could move forward with that in this next meeting. So I'll continue on that then. The golf court ordinance was presented to planning, and they understand what the right direction is from council with regards to coming up and proposing an ordinance for golf carts. I will say, I have seen golf carts going by my house already, even though it's technically not legal to do so. So I guess,
I suppose I should buy one now.
I know, I was like, oh man, it was a little loud, but
So we
it
don't
wasn't
need the
electric.
ordinance then, eh?
What?
We don't need the ordinance?
No, we do need the ordinance. They would be, non-compliant with our current ordinance and the state of Michigan. If the police were to actually stop them, they would actually be non-compliant. Then also, we also appointed members to the sign task force as well to assist with that from planning. Those are the main points that we discussed. Any questions from council for me? Thank you. Sorry for getting up early a couple times.
It's okay. Cool.
Appreciate it.
We really,
you, sir.
Thank you.
we do
Okay.
appreciate it.
Is there Main Street Franklin?
Yes. Susan is out tonight and Jeremy's sick. So Susan gave me a list of things to just run by you. I'm going to start with picking up from the conversation we just ended. The Main Street Board has finished their work plan for the year, and in it are two conversations that I think are relevant to the future of the commercial district and the barn in it. Susan is working on a workshop for planning commissioners, historic district, Main Street Board, council on public-private partnerships. Like, what is that? It's a whole field of endeavor that I think will be helpful to us. There's a lot of experts in Oakland County that can help us understand what that's about, and so that we can have a conversation about how it fits into how we govern the village. So that's on their work plan. The second thing that the board is talking about, that they haven't, it's also on their work plan, but they haven't started doing serious planning yet. You know, the other thing the barn is doing, that whole conversation about the barn is, gee, you know, do we put a major structure in the downtown just because it's available? You know, is that a good way to plan your downtown? We talk a lot, you know, and remember the conversations we had about the streetscape. You know, is it enhancing or is it taking away from the ambiance we want here? So the Main Street Board is starting to talk about and doing a community, like a community meeting or a community event that will solicit ideas and input from community members and members of commissions, representatives, et cetera. So that's coming this year. I just wanted to give you a heads up because it just seemed to be a nice coda to the conversation we had about the barn. Susan wanted you to know that the board is starting to plan for the block party, which is in August, and that will have a bicentennial mood. I don't know what they're gonna do, but they're on board with the bicentennial. She's already applied for 2 types of grants that will result in a cash award to businesses in the village. These are one of these grants is a technical assistance grant that has been in existence for several years now. She is working on some quarterly training for merchants on things like digital marketing, online sales, and how to do that efficiently even when you're a tiny business. And she's also met with Lisa McDonald and her partner regarding the purchase of the farmhouse, the building, the patisserie, former farmhouse. They had a really good brainstorming meeting, and there will be coffee. But she hasn't said anything else. She said it's going to be really good. So I was asked to tell you that.
Mark your calendar.
Yeah, mark your calendars. I have a feeling she's going to move pretty quickly. And
You know,
then
her
the
goal, last year she had said to me when we were talking, is that her goal is at least to have it ready, at least a week before Roundup. So before
I
the
think I
block
heard
party.
that as well, yeah. But they're working on it, and in Main Street Franklin is involved. That means there's support and technical expertise that if Lisa wants it, and she does, and she's a great partner for Main Street, because she was on the board in the beginning when it first started. So that's the Main Street report for tonight.
Okay. Anything on pathways?
No report.
Okay, we have a public hearing scheduled for the outdoor lighting ordinance. We can call this public hearing to order, but it doesn't look like there's anybody that wants to make a comment. So we close this public hearing. David, you were gonna take some, I'm sorry?
Looks like a planning commission meeting right now.
Yeah. Do you have something specific to present, or no?
No.
I just wonder if this would be a better issue with our other 2 council members here, or do you want to move forward?
I'm ready to move forward. I have a couple of concerns, but I'm ready to vote.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion for the second and final reading of the outdoor lighting ordinance. Someone want to make that motion? Nobody wants to make that motion?
I'll move that we adopt the
Outdoor lighting ordinance.
the outdoor lighting ordinance as part of the second and final reading.
Is there a second?
I second.
Discussion.
My two cents worth is that I think it's an okay ordinance. I recognize the concerns about detail. What I think is still missing, but I think fixable when the time comes, is its ability to address any issues with regards to commercial businesses. It seems technical and aimed at homes, except for those two paragraphs on non-residential lighting. But again, I think the work is done, and I can stand by it, and you can always reopen an ordinance when the need is there, so.
Any other,
Yeah, I'm gonna vote, to not approve the second reading and, final reading because we have two council members not here.
Just for discussion purposes, I'm not supporting it tonight either, so if you want this to go to vote, you better wait till you got two more people.
okay, well, it sounds like we don't have the votes, we'll talk about it next month.
Okay,
So-
then I'll withdraw the motion. Can I know what's holding you up?
To me, the whole thing.
The whole thing?
I've never supported it from the beginning. I haven't been involved in it. My first meeting, when I got appointed to council, and I didn't even know I was gonna be appointed that night, was the night you passed this on to planning. I don't buy into it at all. To me, it's a beautiful thing. You wanna put a parking on the shelves till we have more demand. To me, it's a knee-jerk reaction to one situation that's gonna open up way too many issues that just aren't a problem to me in Franklin right now.
Okay, well,
Okay.
And if you have concerns about the commercial part, then bring back a commercial lighting ordinance that talks about how lighting is commercial and how it interacts with the neighbors and stuff like that. No problem with that, but neighbor to neighbor, who's pointing lights at who, Christmas lights, garden lights, lights flagging it, shining at flagpoles, I don't
okay.
need any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, and I want to say it again, that while that intervening issue really was, it really was a pivot point for council, I recognize that. The start of the light ordinance came about because of the streetscape. And in the weakness of our ordinance, our lighting consultant made several recommendations. We've tortured the planning commission on this thing for 3 years. And I'm happy to withdraw it, but I don't know, my question would be, does the person who's in the role of enforcing problems, what are we giving that individual the backup that he needs to be able to do his job? That's the end of my comments.
Yep. I mean, to pass the ordinance because we put a lot of effort into it is not a good reason to pass the ordinance, right? To pass the ordinance because we feel like it's the right thing, or to modify it based on what we think is the right thing for our village. That's the way to pass the ordinance. So if it's a matter of tabling it and waiting for more motivation or other instances or reasons to bring about an ordinance that's more clear, whether it's because of the lack of clarity for an enforcement or for other reasons, we can address it later. That's it's up to your purview on that. But I really don't want you passing the ordinance because we put a lot of effort into it. I want you to pass the ordinance that you think is right for the village. Ultimately, that's really what we're trying to do, because otherwise we create ordinances that might, we can put a lot of effort into a lot of things, and just because we did doesn't mean it's a good ordinance. So if it's not what the council wants, if there's new direction, additional direction we need to take, to strip it down to just to be commercial, we're open to suggestions on those things. But at the end of the day, I would hope that you would pass something that makes sense to you as our representatives.
I'd really appreciate it if those of you who don't like it, tell us or tell
If
them.
one of your concerns of the ordinance and of wanting an ordinance created is to deal with the interaction in the commercial district, to make sure that the lighting we've installed is permissible lighting, and to protect people that interact with commercial properties, I have no problem if the ordinance gets condensed down into that as the specifics. But all of these other things, just, I've listened to all of your meetings and all of the what ifs, and the what ifs, and the what ifs, and the what ifs, and the what ifs. And I go to Roger and I say, Roger, when was the last time somebody complained about somebody's lights?
That's not a reason to not do it.
Well, I will say there are instances in my neighborhood, my area of the village, where the neighbor just talked to the other neighbor and they redirected their light out of their kitchen window.
That's the way it should be.
I mean,
That's
always
the way it
gone
should
on,
be.
And that's typically the
Exactly.
way those issues are resolved.
And that's what we always understood it to be, until we got to one situation where it got escalated, and then we are now like just knee-jerk domino on top of domino on top of domino to where we are now. And I don't know if this even addresses that clear enough in any way, shape, or form.
Well, by having the
And
measurable.
Pam's concern of what she wants addressed is the least thing addressed in the ordinance, when you say it gets two
But in
paragraphs.
all fairness to the council and the planning commission, that was, the answer early on was, anything we do for residential will apply to commercial. I remember people said that. We did not direct the planning commission to do any specific work related to commercial, so,
There's a whole
and
section
I
right
don't,
here.
other than the,
They get their ordinance.
other than the bit that they did, I mean, it's fine, to me,
Doesn't address it.
so, I,
To me, the ordinance, the current ordinance is very vague. This light trespass is a big issue. And I think if we do nothing else but address light trespass on any property in Franklin, will be a success, so.
So our one paragraph ordinance didn't have to become a
Maybe-
six-page
maybe
ordinance
not.
if there were only a few items that were
Right.
of concern, which was redefining light trespass and determining what is the determinant factor? Is it, when I look at a light, it's blinding at me, or what is the light when at the edge of my property? Because they're
What's the
Two
most
completely
subjective way
different
to
the
determine
lights
that?
that shine out and I look at it, they're bright, but if I
Right.
go to and walk to the edge of the property, it's, well, I'm not casting a shadow on the neighbor's
Right.
property. But looking at the light, it's bright.
Right, glare versus light concentration, right? Those are very different things.
Right.
Yeah.
I must say, Stuart, I love your attitude, that you don't take it personally, that you, and I love the point that you said, is it like, that this isn't going anywhere, we can always come back to it.
Yep.
It's, all the work put in isn't wasted necessarily, if we ever need to, so.
Right, I think the biggest exercise that I think we gain from this ordinance, just as a lesson learned from this though, is, you know, when our ordinances are being developed, we do as a planning commission do need to look at a larger just than the narrow focus of what we're being asked to do. We do need to look at the ramifications from a larger sense. Is part of the problem neighbor to neighbor adjacent trespass, or is the problem also night sky concerns? Because that affects not just our immediate neighbor, but it does affect our community at larger, not just immediate neighbors. So I think part of the discussion we had was also to consider, hey, if we're, even though we're trying to address something that's subjective to make it less subjective and more empirical, then, you know, these are other ramifications to consider. And that's what the exercise ended up showing us, that there are other considerations to consider. Now, there were a lot more to consider, but, you know, there's things to pare back, for sure.
So, again, Pam made a motion. She got second, but we didn't
pulled
take
it
a
away.
vote on
She
it. Then she
pulled it
withdrew her
away.
I
motion.
withdrew it, yeah.
So right now, we have on the agenda a second reading. So, again, David and I are 2 of 7, and there are 2 council members that aren't here, that you would only need 1 of which to pass the ordinance. And if the majority of the council supports it, then I support it. That's what we do
Right.
when we're here. So I think the better thing would be to just table it till next meeting.
And I think
Bring
that's what I
something that
said.
we've worked on for over a year and not bring it to a council that's down whatever 2/7 says, I'm not great at math, but over 30% of its,
And I'm good with that. The comment I would make is, do we need to do anything specifically with this ordinance for next month, to review, here's parts we can take out, here's the essential parts? Or do we just leave it alone and start this discussion all over again next month?
David, weren't you gonna take a pen and do some?
Yeah, I had a lot of family stuff come up, so this
Okay.
month was not a good month, but I'm happy to do that exercise.
It would help me understand, and I'd rather hammer out an ordinance that people think is a good one.
Right.
If you put a fly speck on it and, bring it back in a cleaned up scent, I have
Yeah,
no problem.
really,
We're at our
seriously.
second reading.
Do you
That's
accept the
what we do
challenge?
here.
I accept the challenge.
Okay, let's move on. We'll talk about this next month. The signage ordinances, or the excess signage, I thought we had agreed we were gonna put a committee together, they were gonna look at this issue, come back to us with some sort of,
Planning Commission just appointed 2 people that were going to participate. There was one
Okay.
person, I thought, from council. Frankly, I have not done anything else with it.
okay, let's
So,
get it rolling,
I could-
okay.
well, But I would like to have clarity in terms of what the council wants from the signage.
In my view, there's 2 issues. One, do we need all of the regulatory signs that are in town? And I see at the crosswalks at the post office, we went from 11 signs to 3. Thank you. That's all we need. We need to expand that concept to different parts of town, and especially along Franklin Road, where there's, God knows, 100 signs between 13 and 14 miles. So to me, that's what this group is about. The second of the issue is, do we want to pursue new street name signs? And if we do, we got a cost between 10 and 20,000 bucks. What do they look like? What will this committee recommend an option or 2 or 3 that this council can consider? Did I cover that?
And get us
No,
a
I
cost
thought
to
that was
install.
Yeah,
What'd you say?
And get us a cost to install
Right.
from Jerry.
right.
One other item that we talked about in planning, but also I believe came up here, is that also a prioritization as part of that committee. So what do we tackle first? That committee would also address, a prioritization of whether it's replacing the signs or whether it's removing the signs that are in excess. But that would be one of the key tasks for that committee, is to prioritize where we put our efforts.
They're all priority 1.
Yeah, and they're totally separate issues. Completely separate issues.
What, each one of those things?
Those
No,
two,
those two
things.
items are completely separate issues.
But I'm talking about-
What we need to do to clean up excess signage has nothing to do with what we want to strongly consider doing a redo of the ordinances, coming up with a more branded or
Yeah.
an acceptable color, uniformity.
Yeah,
Just
but I mean, like,
clean.
I guess what I'm referring to is for the excess signage, prioritizing which signage we remove in what priority, as well as which ones need to be replaced because of dilapidation and things like that.
But that's really the issue, is where do you see a lot of signs?
So,
I don't know that we can prioritize that. Do you prioritize it by driving on the road and counting signs?
No, what Stuart's asking is, there's now 3 things that's being tasked to this group, which is replacement of the signs, fixing the torn down signs, right, the ones that are dilapidated or knocked over, and then the third one is
Removal of excess.
removal of excessive signs.
But I
And-
think the second issue is already being
Yeah,
handled.
yeah,
When they're-
that's already.
When they're,
Then it just-
so it's really new street name signs and replacing, or
Okay.
eliminating excess signs. To me, the priority is eliminating excess signs,
Okay.
and then we'll get to the other one when we get.
I just remember it coming up last month that part of their task would be to also prioritize, like, where to start on the removal of excess signs, as well as,
Yeah.
and then also proposing several different versions if we were going to re-sign.
If you want a place to start, look at southbound Franklin Road from 14 to Evelyn Court.
I-
11 signs in there.
I'm not, I'm not on that committee to do that. I'm just,
I'll be glad to share mine.
okay, but outside of that area, is there other areas in the village where we have excess signage? Or is that really just the area of focus?
Most of it's been.
I mean, I thought we had an inventory done. I have it in my packet here years ago. HRC, there's a chart of every single sign, it shows where everyone is, up and down, and I thought they concluded that for the most part, and mostly I'll be there.
I guess I'd like to look through that
So-
thing again and let's.
Yeah, okay, so there is,
We have the report. We'll
Yep.
take it back out.
Could I make a request of Dana that that in the minutes, record the charge of this committee? It'll really help. We've just had a conversation about it, what's the output expected from this committee? We can always amend it, but it'll be good to have it written down.
Anything else?
are we outlining that for her right now, or is she gonna?
She's got it in the, it's
She's got it
it's
in
being
the minutes, okay.
recorded, you know,
Okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so just when she does your directive.
yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
I started
good?
talking when you were going up again. Okay.
okay. Last item, David, you had a resolution on Autism Acceptance Month?
Yep, so I'd like to make a motion to recognize April 2024 as Autism Acceptance Month in the Village of Franklin.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just a couple quick statements. So historically, I guess I'll just, when I think about, nationally, it's Autism Awareness Month. And when I think about the strides that have been made around the understanding of what autism is, in the recognition and embracing of those with autism by continuing the efforts of offering support, inclusion, and celebration of those impacted by autism, we've made leaps and bounds from when I grew up in how schools have recognized it and embraced it, and would have been remiss to not have a formal recognition for the village as well. One of the things that I did also want to bring light to is that in 2020, the Autism Society of America replaced awareness with acceptance for the first time, emphasizing the importance of accepting autism as a key factor in building a strong support system, as well as promoting not just education about the difference of people with autism, but understanding and respecting them. So in accordance with that, I wanted to bring the resolution for Autism Acceptance Month for the Village of Franklin.
It's a good one.
Any other discussion?
Having a 24-year-old autistic son, I will say that everything written on this piece of paper is abundantly true. Over the course of the last 20 years, autism awareness, acceptance and inclusion has grown beyond exponential amounts. The acceptance and recognition of autistic people, children, is great. Society's acceptance has grown immensely. Businesses' willingness to allow them to participate in businesses when they don't really add much to the business, but they do add incredible amounts to the child's and family's life. So I thank David for bringing this up. I appreciate everything that goes on. I also have to say that having a son that's about to age out of the Birmingham system, the Birmingham Public Schools has probably one of the best in the state. It's recognized statewide. People come from communities all around to try and get into the program. We are blessed to have that here. My son's now in the adult transition program, which is a brand-new building they built. Or it was always there that they just put millions of dollars in to enhance behind C-Home. So I appreciate this greatly.
Thank you.
I agree, it's a big issue, and we have autism in our family also, and it's something we really need to embrace and do what we can to treat everybody well, so. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Could I read it into the record
Please.
as well?
Okay.
A resolution recognizing April 2024 of Autism Acceptance Month. Whereas autism is a developmental disability that affects how people communicate, interact, and perceive the world, and whereas autism is a spectrum condition that affects each person differently and to varying degrees, and whereas, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, approximately 1 in 36 children in the United States are diagnosed with autism, and the prevalence is increasing, and whereas autism can present significant challenges for individuals and their families, but also unique strengths and abilities, and whereas Early identification and intervention can improve the outcomes and quality of life for people with autism and their families, and whereas people with autism have the right to access education, employment, healthcare, and community services that are respectful, inclusive, and supportive of their needs and preferences, and whereas the Village of Franklin values diversity and contributions of all its residents, including those with autism, and whereas the Village of Franklin seeks to promote awareness, acceptance, and inclusion of people with autism and their families in the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Franklin, or the Village Council of the Village of Franklin hereby proclaims April 2024 as Autism Acceptance Month in the Village of Franklin, Michigan, and encourages all residents to learn more about autism and celebrate the achievements and potential of people with autism.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Vote.